Oi, hold on. It's always something. I just have to say that of all these years on this Bimah, that always gets me. That Eitz Chaim, he just always really speaks to me and hits my heart in a way that opens me up, and it's just really special. So I have to address a few things before I talk. First thing is, yes, I'm in a sling. Yes, I have a brace on. You don't know what's going on with the leg. I had an accident. I went on my first trip ever since COVID. I fell. Oh, yeah, there we go. And I tore a few things, and I broke a few things. No surgery required. Will recuperate in about 3 months. It's all over. You heard the story. Don't ask me about it again, okay? And the other thing I need to tell you, since we're celebrating this week the first bat mitzvah, the 100th anniversary of the first bat mitzvah, I need to tell you my first bat mitzvah thing that I thought about this morning and made an intentional decision. This dress that I'm wearing was for my first daughter's bat mitzvah. So just letting you know, she'll be 31 this year, so you figure it out. It's been in the closet for a long time. I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend. This is my Esther, Rosie Riveter. I did it my way, tambourine. Many of you know that I teach Musar, Tikkun Midot, the study of qualities that are within each of us, like patience, kindness, trustworthiness, honor. Musar, Tikkun Midot, is about learning to awaken ourselves to these qualities, access and fine-tune them, helping us to be our best, most holy selves in a world in relationship to others. It's internal work of noticing habits and patterns that perhaps are not really serving us in a positive way, and looking to shift those patterns to benefit our interactions and our relationships. This week, in one of my va'adot, in one of my groups, we were studying ka'as, anger, and how anger is information. Anger unto itself is not bad. It's what we do with that anger that can be harmful. How we explode, hurting relationships in the process, how we think we know better, inserting ourselves where we have no business being. But at the same time, anger can spur us into action to make necessary changes. So my homework this week is to notice when I get angry. Notice without judgment. What happens? Do I blow? Do I get sarcastic? Do I just sit and boil inside? Are these patterns for me? Do I usually react this way? Is it healthy for me? Might there be another way? So as I was writing this devar, I became aware of my body shifting. It was stiffening. My sense of injustice was arising, my anger emerging. And I realized it was an old pattern, a feeling that comes up for me often about issues of women within Judaism. Born in the 60s, I was the last of the boomers and very sheltered from and naive about women's rights. My life was not hampered in any way by being born female, and I didn't pay attention to any gender rules. When it was time for my bat mitzvah, 47 years ago, it was Parsha Pinchas, 53 years past the first bat mitzvah of Judith Kaplan Eisenstein, who, by the way, Eisenstein is my maiden name, so I think we must be related in some way. For that bat mitzvah, I learned half of a haftarah and shared the day with my friend Mara Rosenblatt. That's the way it was. I didn't even think about it. I don't even really know what the boys did. I had a great Israeli dance party in the evening, and when my parents moved out of their house of 50 plus years, I found my purple bat mitzvah napkins and my thank you notes. I loved synagogue and high holiday choir. My brother and I used to dramatically sing along with the professional quartet. I went on U.S. Wine Wheels and spent much of the time in the front of the bus learning to lead services. I went to Israel and met all these prayer-literate teens from Minneapolis. I didn't compare it to anything I knew from home. I just noticed it, and I liked it. So when I talked to my well-known Cantor, Chazan Samuel Rosenbaum, who was president of the Cantor's Assembly and their executive director for many years. When I talked to him about becoming a Cantor, he flat out said to me in 1979, "Women can't be Cantors." What I didn't know was that Barbara Jean Ostfeld had already been invested in 1975 as the first woman Cantor from Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. And before that, Julie Rosewald, lovingly called Cantor Soprano, unofficially served as a Cantor in San Francisco from 1884 to 1906. And in 1955, Betty Robbins was the first woman to be officially designated as Cantor, with her story making front-page news in the New York Times. I thought, Chazan Rosenbaum said women can't be Cantors. Darn, I think I'll be a music therapist. So I came to Minneapolis, Bethel, in 1984 and learned to read Torah. Saw women leading services. I led services. I put on a talit for the first time, but it did have to be one of those feminine talit because wearing one that men wore didn't seem right. All these things were normal here. I didn't realize, though, that this wasn't a normal experience across the conservative movement. I didn't know at the time how blessed this Bethel was to have two progressive rabbis who were early adopters and outspoken proponents of bringing women on the Bimah. I didn't know that in the 1950s, Rabbi Aronson, Zichrono Livracha, and Rabbi Abelson began calling young women to the Torah as bat mitzvah. While it might have been 30 years after the first bat mitzvah in America, this was still way ahead of many congregations across the country. As regional youth director of EMSA Region USY from 1986 to 1988, I was so proud of the skills our girls had. After all, this knowledgeable Jewish community played a huge role in why I chose to finish my schooling here. Then, after one summer in Israel pilgrimage, some of the girls came back and complained that they weren't able to read Torah on their trip. I was like, what? And I called USY headquarters. They gave me the party line of the Jewish Theological Seminary that had been announced that year. The 1987 announcement from JTS Chancellor Schorch was allowing women to be awarded the diploma of Chazan if women changed their status under Jewish law by accepting the time-bound obligations traditionally reserved for men. If a woman chooses to honor these obligations, which include praying 3 times daily, putting on tefillin, and other time-oriented rituals, they may serve as rabbis or cantors. And this was what 16 and 17-year-old girls in USY needed to do if they wanted to participate in leading or laning. I was furious. Of course, this JTS decision was met by much controversy. Rabbi Ronald Price, executive director of the Union for Traditional Conservative Judaism, said the new policy is far more radical than the ordination of women rabbis. Price said, the decision is tantamount to obliging women to violate Jewish law. He contended that cantors traditionally lead the prayer services and fulfill the obligations of their congregants to recite some mandatory prayers. But, Price said, women cannot fulfill the man's prayer obligation, which is the major function of a cantor. I got married that same year, 1987, and much to my surprise, I wasn't counted in the minyan at my shul of origin. Even though in 1973, by a vote of 9-4, the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards voted a resolution that stated men and women are to be equally included in the count of required quorum for Jewish public worship. What? My shul was so backward and behind the times, and I was confused. Back to Minneapolis. I'm counted. I can lane. I can lead. All is good. When we moved to Connecticut in 1989, I was thrilled there was a conservative shul in walking distance. Then I learned that at that shul, girls became bat mitzvah only on Friday nights. Nixed that idea, I was indignant, appalled, and joined the Reform Shul where my husband grew up. While still living in Connecticut in 1994, Cantor Newman convinced me to go to cantorial school, so I went to check out JTS. When I was told I could only attend if I solemnly swore I would accept the obligations of men, I was again furious. This was demeaning to me, and I wouldn't do it. And in some odd way, I felt like I was being betrayed by my own religion, which I loved. When I moved back to Minneapolis and took on a bigger role than just being the 3-day-a-year Chazan Sheni, it was great. Here at Bethel, I was accepted as a woman on the Bimah. And still, I learned later that there were people who didn't stay in services when I began davening for the high holidays. I found I needed to be aware of my clothing. One day I wore pants for Yontif service in the chapel, and as I walked around with the Torah, someone said to me, "Next time wear a skirt and not pants." There were funerals for congregants with someone in the family who didn't want me on the Bimah or at the cemetery. One time I was asked to be a witness for a conversion, and when it came time for the Beit Din, for the discussion and the decisions, I was told I could not participate because I was a woman. They called a male, non-ordained acting clergy to sit on the committee and excluded me from even listening in. I was, and still am, referred to as Audrey, not as Cantor, while the male clergy are addressed with their titles. I found myself uncomfortable signing documents because it would mean that someone's conversion, wedding, or get might not be accepted with a woman's signature. I had to take words out of prayers, like the Hineni from the High Holidays, because it specifically says, goodly in appearance with a long beard and a pleasing voice. I had to be careful of pitch. Women cantors sing high and shrill. I found myself constantly reinterpreting prayers, referencing women voices in commentaries, holding specific retreats for women, hosting women's seders. I started requesting to be in the room for a get, to provide emotional support for a woman sitting across from 3 men. I witnessed many conversions where the woman was having this significant spiritual moment, and the men were chatting about football in the other room. I remember feeling uncomfortable when the preschool would host the traveling programs of Chabad. Why would Bethel engage this organization that wouldn't recognize me as a cantor? I had to be strong regarding contracts, as salary surveys for cantors consistently followed the national norm for all professions. Women were paid less than their male counterparts. And while I really appreciated the process of studying the Tshuvot regarding adding the matriarchs to the Amidah, why was there any question about adding the Imahot? And why did it take so long? My antenna was always up. And Rabbi Davis can attest that if I noticed anything that seemed to be the slightest bit sexist, I called it out with anger. And don't get me started about places in the Torah that say things like, stone the woman, but take care of the little bird. There was an article in Jewish Women's Archive in 2017 regarding women rabbis. The author wrote, I have been so moved by the revelatory, intimate, and often raw stories of women who have broken the stained glass ceiling over the past 4 decades, and who, despite differences in denomination, geography, and eras, have experienced similar challenges and breakthroughs as they entered into the rabbinate. In addition to the very specific story these pioneers tell of entering and transforming an ancient male profession, they also speak of experiences common to so many women, juggling roles as working mothers, caretaking daughters, professionals encountering gender bias in the workplace, women trying to make time for their partners, friends, and interests, all while meeting the demands of a consuming job. I've been made aware of how much harder women in the rabbinate have had to work to overcome bias. In this traditional profession, long-standing hierarchy and power structures have needed to shift radically to make room for more women and for new styles of leadership. Needless to say, the shift hasn't always been easy or smooth, and it's still a work in progress. Bethel is great. I love this place. We are egalitarian, women on the Bimah fully and equally. And there are still places where marginalizing women inadvertently occurs. And it makes me angry. In our study of ka'as this week, we were learning about antidotes to anger. By strengthening other traits, we can rebalance ourselves quicker and allow ourselves the opportunity to react in positive ways and not ones that are detrimental to our relationships. One of the traits is anava, humility. Our humility can really go awry when there is a sense that others are doing something we deem wrong. How stupid are they? What's wrong with them? They're dissing me. I know better. Or we feel unheard, unseen, unappreciated. So when I'm angry, I need to check my anava. It's not all about me. I can let much of this go, albeit this takes me time, and I'm still working on it. I must realize I can't change everything, can't control others' thoughts or feelings regarding women on the Bimah. I can, however, trust that my role is important as a spiritual guide. And I am a role model for young girls to see a path they can take that I initially did not see. I even have one of my Hazamirniks who is off to cantorial school at JTS next year, and I couldn't be more proud. I look to strengthening my gevura, boundaries. I ask people to refer to me by my title if referring to my counterparts by theirs. And I request to be at every get to support the wife. And I ask directly that anyone at a mikvah conversion hold sacred space during the ceremony. I must look at my kavod muscles, my honor muscles, my ability to honor everyone. While I may initially take offense when someone doesn't want me singing at their loved one's funeral because of my gender, I believe, honestly, that their ability to mourn in the way they are most comfortable is more important than the principle or my ego. And I must honor the great work that Chabad brings to our community with their traveling programs and celebrate them coming to Bethel to teach our preschoolers. I must practice chesed, loving connection. No one means harm when they comment on my clothing, my voice, call me Audrey. I can remember that and keep my heart open. And savlanut, patience. Despite being dissed by actions or comments about women, I can work to keep my mind open and listen with respect. I must remember that each of us is comfortable with what we know, our own traditions, and change is hard and takes time. Everyone moves at their own pace, and some things will never change. I can hold that reality. I may not like it, but I need not take it personally. And mostly, I must engage my hakarat hatov, finding gratitude for what is good, and hodaya, finding gratitude just because. I am grateful that here at Bethel we have women daveners, laners, gabayim, congregational presidents. Everyone counts. I am grateful to have been exposed to a congregation like Bethel with rabbis, cantors, lay leaders, congregants who accept women on the Bimah without hesitation. I am grateful that in our bar and bat mitzvah program, we teach girls to put on tefillin, to wear a talit, to wear a kippah. I am grateful to have had the opportunity to serve as the first woman cantor on this Bimah. I am grateful that we can have this discussion when women are being violated, suppressed, and abused all over the world. I am grateful to my colleagues who listen when I call out what I see. I am grateful there are options to observe, participate, engage, and everyone, men, women, children, can find what fits them best as part of the Bethel family. I am grateful for all the strong women role models in our congregation that helped pave the way and counseled me and continue to inspire me. I am grateful to be here, this moment, this day, with all of you, praying for those trapped in the midst of this senseless, violating war, praying for those who are sick and in need of support, praying that our leaders will do what is right, joining our voices together in song, rejoicing in the voices of our little ones, feeling proud of our students and teachers who are all over the building, and sharing Shabbat as a community. Being a woman, a Cantor, on this Bimah is a joy, an honor, and a privilege, and I am grateful to you. And while I will likely feel anger over these issues again and again and again, at the moment, all I feel is love. And ready for Musaf. Shabbat Shalom.